And we welcome you in live to the Red Hawks Coaches Show. We are at Wings Etc. in Cape Girardeau. And if you have not made plans for lunch, stop on by. We invite you to join us for lunch. On Mondays, they have their award-winning jumbo wings priced just perfectly, 69 cents. And you can partake of the best wings in town, award-winning jumbo wings. If you're not in the mood for wings, they have a full menu, if you're familiar with Wings Etc., including their burger menu, their freshly made burgers. They have wraps, subs, ribs, and much more. If you want to check out their appetizer lineup, that includes their ultimate nachos and their deep-fried pickle spears. Their daily half-pound lunch specials at Wings Etc. start at just $7.99. And we're going to be talking Red Hawks basketball with Coach Rick Ray, senior. We're going to have a guest join us. Skylar Hogan will join us in just a little bit. Red Hawks sharpshooter. We'll get a chance to talk with him. He is a Florida native. Weather's probably a little nicer down in Melbourne, Florida today than it is here in Cape Girardeau. The Red Hawks head basketball coach is here, Rick Ray. And, I guess the first thing I thought about when coming over to Wings, because I saw Joe Hobbs at the game last night when I got the word that the Patriots went down at home in a significant game to the Miami Dolphins, which allowed the Kansas City Chiefs to slide into the number 2 seed, and they'll get a first-round bye. I know you're a Chiefs guy. I am too, and really felt bad for those Patriots.
Well, we want to thank the New England Patriots and Joe Hobbs for their hospitality and extending us an opportunity to play a home game there. But, my boys have gotten into the Kansas City Chiefs pretty much because their dad is, and so they thought there was no way that the Miami Dolphins was going to beat the New England Patriots. And I said, well, actually, the Miami Dolphins have had a little bit of success against the New England Patriots if you look through the history of it. So the Miami Dolphins did what they had to do, like in lieu of a good draft pick. You would think that they would just be tanking and trying to do that, but I guess it happened there. But, if you also look at the history of, like, the Kansas City Chiefs, that it hasn't boded well for them when they've gotten that bye and hosted that first game. And so, like, hopefully this changes there. But if you look at the history of it, it hasn't gone well for the Chiefs when they've been in this situation before.
Well, they've got Patrick Mahomes now, so maybe that is different. I do know the last 6 Super Bowls, the last 6 Super Bowl teams all had first-round byes. They were either a 1 or a 2 seed. So recent history says you get the bye, you've got a great chance to make it all the way.
Yeah, another thing I saw is that the New England Patriots haven't won a Super Bowl when they haven't had one of those top 2 seeds and had that bye as well, too. So they have to change a little bit of history as well. But, it's fascinating going through all that. You're sitting there watching that Sunday night football game, and then what's on the line there is just as far as, like, between the number 2 seed and number 5 seed, what happens with the New Orleans Saints. So it just went down. It's almost perfect scheduling for the NFL in that regard, that you had all the drama going into the last season, last game.
Seattle was inches away from winning the NFC West there on that final play. And the way that the NFL's got it set up, Coach, it's kind of weird, and I know there are some people that don't like it. I don't like it. You've got a bad division in the NFC East where the team that wins, the Philadelphia Eagles, 9-7. Here are the Seattle Seahawks, an inch away from potentially winning the NFC West and being one of the top 2 seeds and getting a bye. Instead, they're 11-5. They have to fly across country and go on the road to play a 9-7 team, even though they're 11-5.
Yeah, and I tell you what, there's always that difference between what's the best record and then rewarding the team for actually winning their conference. It's like picking the teams that goes into the college football playoffs. What's more important, winning your Big 12 championship, a Pac-12 championship, or a team that's a one-loss team from the SEC? Just go back to that. But going back to that San Francisco game, the thing that I just found amazing, and it's just all about you watching coaching. It's our profession. So Seattle does a great job, gets that first down. They're at the 1 yard line. They go up to the line. They had the offensive lineman down. They had to let him get back up to the line, and they clocked the ball. But then after clocking the ball, so now they've lost it down, they go into the huddle, and then they get that 5-yard penalty for delay of game. And that to me that changed the whole game right there. And it's like, how can you clock the ball and then end up getting the situation, because you know that you're trying to get a situation where, hey, we want to huddle, get ourselves together, but then you get that penalty for like play call, and it's just unbelievable that the play clock expired and there was no sort of self-awareness of what was going on. They weren't even up to the line.
No.
They weren't still in the huddle when it happened. And so to me, that was the ball game right there. I know you go to that last play, well, hey, did he cross the goal line or what have you, but to me that was immaterial. The game was lost when they got that penalty.
Well, anytime you get a delay of game like that, you got a veteran quarterback in Russell Wilson. You're at the 1 yard line. I got to think at least 2 handoffs to Marshawn Lynch. They're getting in the end zone.
Exactly. You know, you could quarterback sneak. It's just a variety of things that you can do. But the last thing you want to do is when you've already clocked the ball and lose it down is to go in and get that type of penalty. I just thought that cost them the game right there.
And then you look at Joe Hobbs' team, the New England Patriots. If they are going to get to the Super Bowl, how about this? First of all, they got to beat a hot Titans team at home. Ryan Tannehill's playing well. In fact, over the last 10 games, the Patriots are 6-4. Titans are 7-3. They're playing better football than the Patriots. So first of all, they've got to beat them in Foxborough. If you win that game, you go to Arrowhead to face Patrick Mahomes. If you could win that game, and I don't think they can, then you go to Baltimore to face the Ravens in order to get to the Super Bowl. New England made it really tough on themselves.
Yeah, and it's also amazing how many guys will start playing well once they get traded from Miami. you got Ryan Tannehill, who's playing great football. Then you have Minkah Fitzpatrick. They got traded from the Dolphins and then went to the Steelers and ended up being an all-pro safety. And then also – people don't know this because you just don't pay attention to running backs anymore. It's just amazing that. But the Titans have the NFL rushing leader, Derrick Henry. And so nobody really knows that because you just don't pay attention to running backs and their pure stats anymore, because you want that dual threat guy that can catch the ball like a Christian McCaffrey that's getting 1,000 yards receiving and 1,000 yards rushing. All
right, you're a football guy, so I always get your opinion. Your Clemson Tigers went right down to the wire with Ohio State. The college football playoff. Great game. There was some controversy, a touchdown callback. Was it a fumble? Was it an incomplete pass? So there was a targeting call. I mean, there's a lot of debate on Twitter. You know how social media goes crazy. What were your thoughts there? Because I know you've got some strong ties to Clemson, and they're going to get a shot at LSU and Joe Burrows for the national title.
Yeah, well, first of all, my son Deacon was born in Clemson. So, I mean, he just had all his orange Clemson gear on and ready and rooting. Unfortunately, he had to go to bed. Mom, even though it was not a school night, made him go to bed, so he didn't get a chance to see the fourth quarter. But the most important thing in the household was for him, nobody telling what the score was, no social media, anything until he got a chance to wake up and watch it the next day. But I thought Ohio State squandered opportunities in the first half when they had 3 red zone, and they end up with just 9 points. And so, to me, that was the ball game right there. You can talk about the controversy. You can talk about all those different things. But to me, the game was lost when they had those 3 red zone attempts and then came away with just 9 points. And then also, I thought the whole game changed on that targeting call. It's the right call. I mean, they have to make the call. But you're talking about a guy, and most people don't realize this, that's their 3rd best player on defense that's gone for the game. And he's one of those guys as a cornerback that you can put in different situations. They play him in the slot. They play him at the safety. They play him on wide. I mean, they rush him. They blitz him. Obviously, they blitz him because that's how he got the targeting call. But behind Chase Young and Jeffrey Okudah, that's by far their best player. Now that guy is gone. And he was the type of guy that you can move from the slot, move the cornerback. He was their brightest, they say, football player on that team defensively. So that was a huge loss for them. And you could see the whole tenor of the game change after that targeting call.
And then LSU gets 7 first-half touchdowns from Joe Burrows. And then you just go back to what is becoming painfully obvious. There are 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, and the Oklahoma Sooners getting boat raced in the college football playoff every year.
Yeah, I think that this whole debate about going to 8 teams, I mean, until there's a competitive game every single time in semifinals, let's get to the point where both semifinal games are competitive before we talk about expanding to 8 games. Because every year there's always a blowout in one of the semifinal games, and I just think that's going to continue to happen. So if you get eight teams in, so now you got the number 8 team playing the number 1 team, LSU. LSU is going to boat race them. I mean, it's just going to happen. And so now only thing that's going to happen is the prospect of somebody that's really good from LSU getting injured playing in the game that they were going to win. I mean, so just keep it at 4 teams. But also, to me, just watching the quarterbacks, to me, when you play a really good team, you get the chance to see, like, how good these quarterbacks are. And to me, I thought it was a huge difference between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields as far as, hey, you're playing elite competition now, the defenders and cornerbacks, when those windows are going to be, you know, you get to the NFL, you have tighter windows. And so now you can see who is actually an NFL quarterback. And I just thought it was really apparent that the way Joe Burrow played, that, hey, he's going against elite competition, but he's still making those same windows, the same plays. But a guy like Jalen Hurts, playing against guys that are going to play in the NFL like Derek Stingley and Grant Delpit, there's no windows at all. He couldn't get it through. And I thought the same thing between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. I thought Trevor Lawrence excelled in being able to see people even against elite teams, and I thought Justin Fields struggled a little bit in that department.
And you could make an argument that in this national championship game, LSU and Joe Burrows, Clemson and Trevor Lawrence, that you've got the number 1 pick in the next 2 NFL drafts. Burrows likely number 1 this year. Trevor Lawrence finally eligible next year, probably number 1 unless something weird happens.
Yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence for sure is going to be the number 1 pick unless somebody emerges that you just don't know about. I know there's a lot of debate about Chase Young being the number 1 pick, but I just don't think how you can pick somebody there where Joe Burrow is going to affect every play. Chase Young is by far a really good player, but does he affect every single play the way Joe Burrow does? So I'm not an LSU guy, but you got to respect. I mean, he may have had the greatest season ever, one season for a college quarterback in the history of college football. I mean, it's been unbelievable. So his completing percentage, the way he just orchestrates the game and makes the right plays all the time.
Yeah, and Ohio State say, hey, you're just not good enough to play here. So it would have been interesting had they played each other, but that's not going to happen. So Clemson and LSU, Coach Ray, anybody that knows him knows he's a big football guy. You just heard his football knowledge. Always like to talk pigskin with Coach Rick Ray. Now let's talk some round ball. Your team back home for the first time in 37 days. You went 5 weeks without a home game, and I know the Director of Strategic Communications at SEMO, Jeff Hanza, went back and did a lot of research. He could not find anywhere in the Division I era where there were 8 straight road games and 5 weeks between home games. That was something that may have never happened at Southeast. And I know there are probably some people saying, man, how did that schedule work itself out like that?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it happens kind of in the NBA. It's called the Rodeo Tour with the San Antonio Spurs, where they have the rodeo there and they go on that long, arduous road trip. But for us, it just kind of – we had the situation where when we're going to these home and homes, so we're kind of at the behest of them when they want us to come to their place. And then what really happened when it was all said and done, we had a game scheduled against Texas A&M. But Texas A&M at the last minute had to pull out because they had an opportunity to play Texas, and they wanted to renew that rivalry. And so they bought out our contract, and then so now we were scrambling trying to find games late. And so that's what the kind of the domino that led to us being on the road for so long.
I'd heard it's like a $95,000 game against Ohio State. Were any of those other games money games for Southeast?
Yeah, Drake was a money game for us, and obviously you just already pointed out Ohio State. That was a money game for us. And then going to play in Santa Clara and at MTE is always a money game as well.
Did you feel like a SWAC school just playing every game away from home? I mean, that's the way it happens in the SWAC.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm good friends with Mike Davis, who is now the head coach of Detroit. And excuse me, before that he was at the SWAC school. He was at Texas Southern, and they would start their season on the road, 11 straight games, 12 straight games, 13 straight games. But it's something they had to do for the university in order to generate money for the athletic department. And so, and they would go and they would win the SWAC title after that. And so, to me, the psychology of how do you go out and just get your brains beat in for 11 straight games, but still get your team to believe once you start playing in the SWAC that you're good enough to win it, because there's no evidence there to suggest that. And so he just talked about, hey, the finances and this is what you have to do, but it's all the time just talking about improvement in those games to set yourself up for a situation where you can be successful in the SWAC. And I just thought the psychology behind that was what I was interested in. And so you have all these non-conference games, you have some of these bye games. Well, obviously you're trying to go out and you improve, but you're getting bought for a reason. So now how do you turn that around from those games to get yourself to be prepared to be successful in your conference?
Okay, so we know Abilene Christian was a return game because they came to the Show Me Center. Any of the other games, return games, anybody come in next year?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember things off the top of my head. We've been gone for so long. The MTE was just a tournament,
Sure.
so none of those games will be return games. Then we had Abilene Christian was a back end of a home and home, so that doesn't count. You have to refresh my memory. Who else we played? Drake was a bye game.
Then you went to Drake,
yes.
So that's a bye game, and then it's Youngstown State.
Youngstown State will return to us next season.
Okay, so that was a home and home.
Yes, sir.
And you look at the schedule every year. Explain how tough it is for you to get recognizable or name teams. I mean, you're not going to get a Power 5 school to come to the Show Me Center, but how tough it is right now at your mid-major, low-major, however you want to describe it, to get teams to come to the Show Me Center, Division I teams where the fan base says, hey, yeah.
Yeah, it's next to impossible. I know my first year here we had Ole Miss come here. But if you look at it, it really was bad scheduling, to be quite honest with you, because we did a 2-for-1 with Ole Miss. And so what happened in that situation is we went and played Ole Miss 2 times at their place. They paid us $85,000 to play that first game there. And then we went back for the second season for no amount of money, but in exchange they would come to our place and play. Well, it's just a bad deal because – to me, when you do the 2-for-1, we basically played that second game at their place for free. And so now to me, what you have to find out, are you going to make $85,000 by having Ole Miss come play at the Show Me Center? And the answer is no. And then a lot of times when you do have that situation, in order for that to happen, it has to be a packed house, and it also has to be your fans that are coming. If you look at that game, the people that came to that game that boosted our attendance were not SEMO fans. They were actually Ole Miss fans. So the situation there as far as like trying to get a high major to come to a mid-major or low major place normally doesn't happen. The only people that really do it is North Carolina. North Carolina, when they go out and recruit, they are going to play a home game, and that young man's close to their hometown. So if it ends up being that they go and play Davidson because they want to play a game close to Charlotte, or they'll go play a UNC Wilmington because the young man is from Wilmington. That's the only high major that I know of that religiously goes out and plays at a mid-major. Now, if they got a choice between going and play a high major, they'll do that first. But if they have to do a low major or mid-major in order to get that young man back to his hometown, Roy Williams is the only person that I know that does that.
Talk about maybe some of the discussions that you've had with schools, and it doesn't even have to be high majors, but maybe mid-majors that you still can't get them to come to the Show Me Center.
Yeah, nobody wants to. I mean, anytime you get on the phone and you start negotiating these, I tell you, besides like dealing with your players and trying to make sure they're in the right place mentally day to day, scheduling is the hardest thing beyond that.
Really?
I mean, it's a joke because no one wants to start a home and home at your place. Everybody's trying to start a home and home at their place. And then also everybody's trying to get the optimum time for them to have their game, whether it's on the road or away. And so what you do is you're trying to put all these puzzles, and what happens is people just don't tell the truth. And that's the biggest problem in our society, period, is like, hey, do you want to play this game? They'll say, yes, we want to play the game. And so you're penciling in, but really they don't want to play the game. They got 3 other things they got going. And if, hey, just tell me that. if you just tell me that, but now I've got you penciled in, and I turned away a different opportunity based on what you told me, and then you come back and you say, well, this fell through, that fell through, and what they're doing is just lying. They're not telling the truth. Well, now you have to go back and circle and try to find somebody that you can play, and those opportunities have gone away because you had this penciled in. So it just becomes like, hey, how can you find the right matrix and putting the pieces of the puzzle in to put together a schedule?
So one other thing, you play in a tournament in California. We played in Cancun a couple of years ago, and I know everyone loved that trip, and I know you loved exposing your players to that. Several years before that, I think 3 years before that, the Red Hawks went down to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, stayed in a Hard Rock down there, and they ended up winning that tournament. That was back in the Tyler Stone, Jarikas Bradley, Nino Johnson days. Isn't it every 3 years you can go to one of those tropical tournaments like you did with Cancun? Is next year one of those years where if it's available, you can go back to one of those places? What's the rule?
Yeah, they actually changed the rule now that you have an opportunity. So what you're referring to, the every 4 years, was going on a foreign trip. And so you couldn't go on a foreign trip once but every 4 years. But now with these MTEs, they changed the rule a couple years ago that you can go to an MTE, whether it's in states or abroad, every single year. So they've changed that as long as it's during the season. It's still the once every 4 years that you can go outside of that. And maybe you want to go to Europe or you want to go to Greece or something like that. That's still once every 4 years.
So are you mulling over? Do you already know where you're going next year? And have you thought about a Cancun, type of atmosphere, or that tropical warm place where the players would get excited about going to play?
Yeah, and it's all about the finances piece of it. The Cancun situation was great because Cancun, what they did was you didn't have to go pay. Most of the time, these MTEs, you have to go play 2 high majors, and it's all about the location. So, hey, they're going to pay you $150,000 to go play, but you have to go to Arizona State and go to St. John's. And you're taking care of the expenses to get to those different places.
I see.
And so it doesn't make sense sometimes. But for the trip to Cancun, we went and played Evansville, and we went and played Louisiana Tech. And then they paid us $150,000, but they also paid for all the expenses to go to Cancun. And so we didn't pay for anything. And they also had a charter plane for us to go to Cancun.
You shared it with Evansville.
We shared it with Evansville.
Yeah.
So to me, that was advantageous, not just for us as far as giving our guys a great experience to go to Cancun, but also financially it made sense for us to do it.
So what do you got?
We got some things in the work, but there's nothing set in stone. Until I get pen to paper, I don't talk about it because that changes all the time.
No, it absolutely does, and we know. Because sometimes you'd like to release your schedule early, but you haven't got a contract signed, and so you can't release it. You think the game is going to happen, but until the contract is signed, you really can't, your hands are tied, right?
Yeah, and it just comes down to trust. I mean, everybody says, hey, we got the contract in hand. We're getting it signed. You call them a week later. We got the contract. It's done. We're just waiting. And then a month later, it's like, yeah, we're pulling out. Hey, just tell me up front that you're not doing the game or you're waiting on a different situation so we can make plans likewise.
So I know you have said in the past that if you've got a really good friend who's a head coach, you're not in favor of playing them, right? I mean, that's not your thing. So, Clemson is probably not in SEMO's future, right? I mean,
yeah.
I know you want to coach again. You've got good friends, but you personally would rather not coach against your friend.
Yeah, and to me, they feel the same way. I mean, there was a situation that we were in contract talks to maybe play Purdue, and then I had talked to Matt, and Matt I just don't want to. I don't like playing my former assistants or guys that I'm close to, and the same thing with Conzo Martin at Mizzou, places like that. So there's so many people that I'm close to that I work with, whether it be Earl Grant, who's the head coach at College of Charleston now, but we just don't feel comfortable playing each other. Now, happenstance, you're in a tournament, something like that, sometimes those things occur.
Sure.
But we don't want to schedule it that way.
Yeah, Nick Saban has no problem playing his former assistant.
Yeah, he's undefeated against them, no problem.
He's worked his former assistants like a speed bag. So you come back to the Show Me Center after 5 weeks away, 37 days. How good was it to get back home and know that, hey, I mean, you can unpack your bags, but, hey, we're right back on the road, on Wednesday to go to Austin Peay and Murray State. But for your guys, they just came back from Christmas break. How good was it to finally get home?
Yeah, it was good. And then also just the familiarity. When you're on the road, you're shooting around in different arenas, you're traveling. The travel is exhausting, and people don't realize that part of it as well, too. But just getting a chance to get back to your friendly confines of a home environment and getting a chance to have a routine and being familiar with, hey, the rims and the court and the routine just really makes a difference in guys' day-to-day lives.
And people may not understand how a lot of this travel went. You would fly somewhere, like you flew to Dallas, Texas. Well, then it's fly to Des Moines, Iowa, then bus, back about halfway, stay in a hotel, then bus back. So it's not like an 8-hour bus trip. It's fly to Detroit, and then no, it wasn't Detroit. It was Cleveland.
Yes.
Fly to Cleveland, drive to Youngstown State, play that game, drive to Columbus, and then make it a 2-day journey back to Cape Girardeau. I mean, you're logging a lot of bus miles in addition to airline miles.
Yeah, and it's not, when you get to that airport, it's not like the college or the university is right there at the airport. It's usually some sort of a 2-hour or 3-hour drive after you get to that airport to that college town. So not just the airplane, not just the airport trip, but also now getting in the bus and going an additional 2 to 3 hours outside of that airport.
So Missouri Baptist comes in, and you got off to a slow start offensively, but then finally got a little traction. Alex Caldwell, I thought, kind of kick-started your offense. The same with Skylar Hogan. What were your thoughts on the start that you got off to, what you were saying in the huddles, and what you saw as far as finally getting some offensive traction against the Spartans?
Yeah, well, the message for us, and it's really quite simple, is that we have to understand who we are and then buy into that, because it's not going to change instantaneously. We've got to continue to work to become a better offensive team, but it's not going to be, hey, we talk about it, we have a couple practices, and then voila, we're obviously a better offensive team. It just doesn't happen that way. But we've got to embrace an identity that we're going to be a tough, hard-nosed, physical defensive team. And so the thing that I was most worried about is, hey, you don't go and have success on the offensive end right away. Do we stick with our defensive principles, and do we continue to grind on the defensive end? No matter who your opponent is, you're going to have your offensive laws. If you can't score, you can't score. The opponent doesn't change that situation. And so what I was most concerned about was how we were going to react when we didn't have success on the offensive end. Were we going to continue to defend at a high level? And to me, that was the most important thing. And then the other part offensively is we put up before the game all of our assist-to-turnover ratios in all of our games. And so that's the thing to me that's got to change. We've got to stop trying to make individual plays and make things harder for ourselves when something is not there, because our assist-to-turnover ratio is not very good at all. And so the times that we won our games, our assist-to-turnover ratio was positive in 2 of those 3 games. So you're talking about a 67% winning clip. But then in all the rest of the games, assist-to-turnover ratio, we're at 11% winning percentage when that happens. The most important thing for us offensively is to make sure that we take care of the basketball and quit trying to make too many hard plays, make simple plays. So if we could concentrate on those 2 things, pass the ball, make simple plays, and then grind it out on the defensive end, no matter what's happening on the offensive end, then we have a chance to be good. But that's a hard identity to embrace, but that's something that we are right at this point in time, and we've got to embrace it, but we continue to fight that. Then that's when we get into trouble.
You're kind of middle of the pack in turnovers. You haven't had a rash of turnovers. You're not among the league leaders in turning the basketball over, but you're at the bottom in assists, 9 assists per game. But yesterday, different story. You assisted on 17 of your 25 field goals. What'd you see?
Well, and it's just about passing the ball. The game of basketball is simple. We make it complicated. And I told our guys, anytime you get 2 people on you, pass. I mean,
the math says somebody's open.
That means it's 4 on 3 when you pass the ball. And so I don't have a problem with you trying to draw 2, because when you talk about basketball, that's all it is. It's trying to get 2 people on you, whether it be penetration or some sort of a ball screen, and now you kick out. or you throw the ball into the post and they start to dig or help or trap in some way, shape, or form, throw the ball out of there. So we want to get to a situation where there's two people on you, but the key is once you get that, quit trying to split the defense, quit trying to score over two people, quit trying to make a hard play. Just simply pass the ball out and get the ball moving so we can score on the backside of you drawing two people.
Darius Agnew only played 3 minutes last night, limped out of the game. It looked like they were working on his knee, his left knee. I don't know. All we know is he did not come back into the game. Are you concerned?
No, not yet, because we just don't know the results of anything yet. So we're going to have an MRI with him sometime today. He met with the doctors, obviously, after the game. Then he's going to go in. He was already in this morning, and the doctor's going to look at him. So until I get results from those medical procedures and those examinations, then I don't want to speculate. But it could be something as simple as where he hyperextended his knee. It could be a meniscus. It could be something worse than that. So I don't speculate until I get some hard-fought information.
All right. You've been waiting on Chris Harris. He's been doing some rehab with a knee brace. Is there an update on Chris Harris? Do you think you're going to get him back, or does it look like it's a redshirt season?
Yeah, we've got to make a decision on him. He's either got to start progressing as far as like being able to do things, contact 5-on-5, or we got to shut him down and have surgery. And so we've got to get to the point where he has to be comfortable telling us what he can do. There's a difference between being injured and being hurt. And so we have to make that determination with him. Is he injured, where he has to go in, shut it down, and have surgery, or is he hurt where he can pay through some things, but he just hasn't progressed into where we can actually get that evaluation on him yet.
All right. You end up winning this basketball game by a final score of 74-59. It was Alex Caldwell leading the way with 15 points. And when he's hitting shots, it really seems like other guys start to feed off of what Alex Caldwell's doing.
Yeah, and I think the key for him is that the shots that he took were great shots. They were uncontested threes, and it happened because we got some penetration. We kicked out. Our post guys did a great job of finding him. But I think the biggest stat for him, I think he only had zero turnovers and 5 assists. And that's what you need out of a point guard. You need him generating offense not just for himself, but also for others. So I thought the way he played that game was probably his best game that he's played, because I thought he scored well against Drake, but he didn't have all the assists and he had more turnovers. So to me, I just thought that was his best floor game that he had this season.
How about Sage Tolbert, a double-double coach, 11 points and 11 rebounds, and I'm telling you, he had some shots early in the game where he just got some bad rolls. I mean, it looked like he was going to finish around the basket, had some bad rolls, didn't have any good luck early in the game. Didn't affect him. He still had a nice game for you.
Yeah, I think he's – and we'll find this out, but I think he could be the best front court defender in the OVC. I mean, he is just so active. He covers up a lot of our mistakes with his athleticism and his length, and he's a really knowledgeable basketball player. He's always in the right spots. He can scissor out to different people. He knows when to switch. He knows when to help, when not to help. He rebounds the basketball. So he's a tremendous defender for us, and we need him on the court. Offensively, he needs to be a guy that finishes around the rim. Just keep it simple. He needs to be a straight line driver, and he needs to be a guy when he gets those opportunities around the rim. You know, we also got to get him to the point where just start going up and dunking some of those, because he's missing some of the so-called easy layups. So if you're missing a layup, you might as well try to get a dunk attempt, and maybe you get to the free throw line as well. But we need to continue to have him get more confidence in finishing around the rim, and we're going through extensive workouts with him during this semester break. To me, this is the opportunity for guys to get better individually. And obviously the thing that he needs to work on is making sure that he's finishing these opportunities around the rim.
Nigel Russell got extended playing time in this game, Coach. 23 minutes, 12 points, 6 rebounds, and he led your team with 6 assists. He also had a steal. What did you see from Nigel Russell? That clearly is his best game of the year.
Yeah, well, he had a simplistic approach to the game. I just think that you saw maybe the first possession he had, he was in the open court and he tried to in and out crossover, and the ball went out of bounds. You know, he dribbled it off his foot. And there was no need for any of that at that point in time. Just dribble the ball straight. And if I said now you see the difference between like playing simple basketball and making things complicated. And so for him, he is, first of all, he's a very intelligent young man. Then he has the physical body that you need. Sometimes when we have all those little guards out there, we need a big, strong physical presence like him, not just on the defensive end, but offensively, a guy that can drop his shoulder and get into the teeth of the defense and make a play. And then also he rebounds the ball well. He's a good athlete. So we need him on the court sometimes. But what he does is he takes away from those opportunities by trying to make the game too hard. Just make simple plays. And I think what you saw more than anything in that game was he kept a simple game plan, and that's why he had success.
Khalil Cuffey also, Coach, ends up in the basketball game with a season season high in terms of minutes played, 17, 10 points, 2 rebounds, couple of assists, went 4 of 5 from the free throw line. He's a terrific three-point shooter, did not hit a three-point shot, but you saw when he took the ball to the basket, he had some really eye-popping plays where he finished around the rim. I mean, he looks like a bodybuilder. I mean, he is big and strong, and he's a guy that has the physical strength to finish in there, right?
Yeah, he's a guy for us. First of all, he can really catch and shoot. Now, I think he sees the difference between doing it in practice and doing it in warm-ups and game time, because when the popcorn popping is a little different out there. So, but for him and the way that we struggle offensively, he's a guy that can bring some pop to our offense because he can catch and shoot. Like you said, he's got a big, strong physical body where he can go in there and take contact and finish around the rim. His struggles have always been being in the right place on the defensive end and making sure that he covers our assignments, especially with the position he's playing. But with us not having Isaiah Gable, who had the thigh contusion, wasn't available for us, and then Darius goes down, obviously that limits our front court opportunities. So it was a good opportunity for Khalil to get on the court and make some plays for us.
And is this what did you see? I'm sure you're going to look at film more, but just watching from the sideline, what did you see from Cuffey on the defensive end in this game? Did he do enough on that end maybe to see some more playing time?
Well, he still made some mistakes, but you're going to make mistakes. But to me, the thing that we got to be able to do is like the simple game plans that we have, the principles that we have. Sometimes teams are going to do things. You can't walk through everything that the opposing team is going to do. But what we can't have is we can't have breakdowns on the things that we have principles on in our defense. And that's where he's got to have a maturation process where he gets to the point where, hey, like the simple things that we're doing, our principles that we have, that's where you can't have the breakdown. If they have a breakdown on the intricate play that they did, I can understand that because we weren't prepared for that. You weren't prepared for that. But when there's like a simple back screen or a ball screen or a rotation that we do pretty much every day in practice, that's where we can't have the breakdowns, and that's where he's got to see the improvement.
We had a scheduling conflict with Skylar Hogan, so I'm told Skylar won't join us. He'll join us on a future show. That's not a problem. With the injury to Isaiah Gable, and I don't know if it lingers in a conference play, and now Darius Agnew is a question mark. Are there any guys kind of moving around? Are you moving guys to different places knowing that, hey, maybe those guys aren't available?
Well, we talked about, and I had a conversation with Skylar Hogan, that we may have to start experimenting with him playing some of that small ball and playing him at the 4 spot to give us an opportunity where we can have a guy out there that can catch and shoot and make plays from the perimeter. Because sometimes, and it's not a problem with Sage, but Sage is a guy when he picks and pops at times that the defense doesn't have to respect that because of his lack of three-point shooting and his lack of ability to go make a play off the bounce. And so what we used to have with those guys like a Milos Vranis, a guy that was a threat on the pick and pop, Denzel Mahoney, who was a threat on the pick and pop, but also if he closed out to him, he could drive and go by and make plays for himself. And so maybe Skylar gives us that opportunity. Khalil is a guy that can do that. And then obviously Isaiah can as well too. So we're going to have to start playing a little bit. We're having a more so-called skilled forward where that's the way we've been in the past, and that's where we've had success offensively. This is our biggest struggle that we've had offensively, and it's simply because we don't have a threat at the forwards at times that puts stress on the defense.
We'll talk more about Austin Peay coming up, but Terry Taylor, he may be the best player in the league. He's the leading scorer in the league right now. Does Sage Tolbert draw that assignment? And if he does, do you worry about foul trouble?
We always worry about foul trouble with Sage Tolbert. I mean, I think he fouls more than anybody else in the league.
But Taylor can put fouls on guys.
Yeah, and bottom line, when you play somebody as good as a Terry Taylor, it's not going to be one person. It's not going to be just like, hey, you have to go out and stop Terry Taylor. Our team has to be locked in and stopping Terry Taylor. And now also, what are you giving up? Are you sacrificing another guy having a career night because you're so locked in on Terry Taylor that now somebody else goes off for 30 because of your principles and what you're trying to do and locking down Terry Taylor? But Sage has the presence, the length, the athletic ability to be able to have a chance to guard somebody like Terry Taylor. Now, who else is going to be that other person because he can't do it for 40 minutes? Then also making sure our team defense is surrounding him and taking away opportunities that he might have to be able to be around the basket and finish.
OVC play is here. The Red Hawks are heading to Austin Peay and Murray State Thursday and Saturday, respectively. We'll talk more about OVC play and the Red Hawks' upcoming opponents when we come back. Let's take a time out here from the Red Hawks Coaches Show. We're at Wings, Etc. on SEMO ESPN. Cape Girardeau location, so make plans to join us there. The Red Hawk basketball team getting set to head out on the road. And Coach Ray, if you were, I think most OVC fans, people that follow the Ohio Valley Conference, if I told you the top 3 teams in the league are Austin Peay, Murray State, and Belmont, would that be a fair shake?
Yeah, I haven't followed it enough, but I think always that Murray State and Belmont are going to be in that conversation for the top 3 teams because they've just been traditional powers. And then when you talk about Austin Peay, when you probably got the best player in the OVC on their team, then they probably have a chance to be in that top 3.
And Tennessee State is really off to a good start. Tennessee State Tigers, a team that really hasn't done a whole lot the last few years, but Tennessee State right now has the second best record in the league. And again, I'm not talking about who they've played, but they're 8-5. Belmont 9-4. Austin Peay 6-6, and Murray State 7-5. So you could make an argument that to preseason, people think those are the top 3 teams: Murray State, Austin Peay, Belmont, in any order. And then Tennessee State has come on. Man, that's who you get. I mean, it's Austin Peay, Murray State. Then you come home, it's Belmont, Tennessee State who's playing well, and then Murray and Austin Peay come in. So, I mean, wow. I mean, that's a tough opening act for conference play.
Yeah, and I'm obviously you have your scheduling conflicts, but I just think it's disappointing when you're playing your so-called rival like a Murray State and teams that are close, and you're going to play them for the first time. You're playing them 2 times within the first 3 weeks of the OVC season. I just think that's something that needs to be spaced out a little bit better. And I know they have these mathematicians that they go hire and, things like that, but there should be a basketball person after they get done with all the mathematics part of it. It's like, hey, it's probably not best that we have SEMO and Murray State playing the first 2 games of their schedule within the first 3 weeks.
And then you're done with Murray State. And I don't ever remember it being like this. You usually play Murray State maybe second or third week, and then you play them late in the year. I mean, that's the way it's always been. I'm not saying that change is bad and there can never be change, but I was really shocked when I looked at that. That it just seemed very, very odd.
Yeah, and I didn't notice it, obviously, until we started looking at the OVC schedule, so you're so locked into your non-conference schedule. But when I saw that, I just thought that's disappointing from a fan perspective.
So you look at Austin Peay. They've got the top scorer in the league, and we've talked a lot about Terry Taylor. Not only is he the top scorer, Coach, he's the top rebounder in the OVC. So guys that win scoring and rebounding titles, that is rare. And, again, it's early. We haven't even played a conference game. I don't know if he'll remain there, but he probably is the best player in the conference now that John Morant is gone. But Austin Peay right now, the second highest scoring offense in the league at 78%, and they're the best free throw shooting team in the conference.
Yeah, and that's something for them that's kind of been different because they've always been a defensive-minded team. And I think what they're doing is just beginning to watch tape last night, they're turning their defense into offense at a high rate. They turn you over. They're physical. They deny. They get out in the passing lanes. And what they've done now is they've taken that defense and they've been really prolific in their transition offense and taking that defense into offense.
And what's interesting is they are next to last in field goal percent defense. You usually don't say that about Austin Peay, but they're allowing opponents to shoot 47%, and they're next to last in guarding the three-point line as well. So that's kind of odd. It's kind of a flip-flop where they're struggling on defense and they're just, scoring a bunch of points.
Yeah, it's so different for them because, when you get ready to go play Austin Peay, you knew it was going to be a fist fight. It was going to be a physical confrontation on offense and defense. And now they've got to the point, and obviously I haven't looked at enough of it to tell you what they're doing different. But I just think that they're more offensive-minded, and maybe them being more offensive-minded has kind of hurt their defense somewhat.
So how much, obviously you're focused in on Austin Peay. Do you peek at Murray at all? I mean, your assistants are doing scouts for you, and so they're doing a lot of the work. Do you peek at Murray at all, or are you simply, looking at Austin Peay? I know that's your primary motivation, but how does that work?
Yeah, usually the way it works is so we always play Thursday, Saturday. And so I'll start looking at all the teams, the film of the opponent that we're going to play on Thursday. I'll get that locked in from Sunday to Wednesday. But then Wednesday night, I'll start looking at the Saturday opponent, and I'll spend the whole game day looking at the Saturday opponent so I can have some sort of a jump on it. Because at that point in time, when you're about to play a game, if you don't know what you're about to do against the team you're about to play, it's too late anyway. So we have that done, and so then I'll start looking at that Saturday opponent.
You've got some new coaches this year, Coach. Terrence Crump and Jason Owens. Keith Pickens is back. Still can dunk, probably as good as any of the players on the team. I love his videos on Twitter. But you've got 2 new guys. And so I know everybody – I don't know if everyone does a scout exactly the same, but, who's got the scouts for Austin Peay and Murray State?
To be honest with you, I don't even know yet because we haven't had our meetings yet about scouting. So I started looking at some things last night. So once we get done with this radio show, we'll get together and we'll start looking at some of the things that they want me to look at that they've already put together. So what I normally do is I watch a game or two on my own because I don't want input from them yet, and then we'll get together and we'll say, okay, what did you see? How do you want to guard this ball screen, the matchups, those types of things. And so to me, it's always they got to know what I want. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate scouting. Like, hey, they run this play, they run this play, they run that play. Okay, how do they score? I mean, that to me is the most important thing. Sometimes, like with Austin P, they ran all these plays, but at the end of the day, they scored because they threw the ball in the post and they got offensive rebounds. So that's what we need to work on. So, yeah, let's walk through some plays, but does that play lead to them getting the ball into the post? And then more importantly, hey, we got to work on defensive rebound because that's what they're really good at. Hey, we got to work at transition defense because they're really good as far as like turning defense in the offense because they're going to knock some balls loose. They're going to force turnovers. So those are the things we have to focus on. So to me, it's really important that your assistant coaches have a clear message of what you're looking for as a head coach. So I don't care about they have 50 set plays. Are they scoring? What plays are they scoring on? What plays are going to have a complication where, hey, we don't have our principles locked in on that one. We need to walk through this play.
How tough is it when you're looking for assistant coaches? Because I'm sure you just must get flooded with text messages, phone calls, emails, whatever. You hire 2 assistant coaches in the offseason. How tough of a process is that? And because I know you got 1,000 other things to focus on than going out and hiring new assistant coaches.
Yeah, well, to me, the number one thing is I think you have to be honest with people that are calling in about people that they are suggesting. So first of all, if I don't have any sort of a personal relationship with the person that's calling, it does not matter who you are to me. I mean, because at the end of the day, this is all about trust. And so the basketball part of it we can figure out, but at the end of the day, these guys are mentors to our players. And so that I got to know that I'm bringing in the right person that's going to be a mentor to these young men. We have to be role model for them. We have to develop them both on and off the court. So, hey, the basketball part of it, the recruiting part of it, we can figure those things out. But if you're not a good person, then it doesn't matter. And the only way that I'm going to trust that a person is a good person is that I'm getting it from somebody that I know. So unless you got a guy like a Conzo Martin or Paul Lusk or Matt Painter or Brad Brownell, somebody that I've had, contact with that I really trust, a Kareem Richardson, somebody like that, then you're probably not going too far in this vetting process. And so that's the first thing. And, hey, is that, I always say, is that maybe wrong or right? It doesn't matter. To me, that's the process. So when people call in and they have all these anonymous guys, it doesn't matter to me. And so I just make sure I'm telling you that you have to hit somebody that I know and trust call on your behalf, or I'm not going forward with this process. And so just getting on the phone and being honest with people or responding to emails and text messages and being honest with them kind of weeds out that process a little bit. But I've been around so many good coaches in my coaching tree that now I get a flood of people, and I got a couple of people that I really trust saying, this is the guy, and then you got to figure it out from there. So a guy like Terrence Crump, who played for me when I was at Purdue, and so now he worked for a guy like Conzo Martin, then I know that I can trust that situation. And then Jason Owens was a guy, a lot of these people that you deal with, all they want is a job. And so anytime you have a first conversation with them, they call you the next day, hey, can you help me here, help me there. Jason Owens was a guy that I had contact with throughout the years. He never, ever, ever asked for anything. He just truly was trying to help out his players when he was at Mobley. And so to me, those are the type of guys that you want, guys that are, hey, this dude is in it for the right reason. He's in it trying to help the student athlete and trying to make sure he gets them in the right situation, and that's all he cared about.
When you talk about true trust, I mean, you're director of basketball operations, Al Myers, and he's got a tough job for what he does for the program. Your trust goes all the way back to growing up together. I mean, you can't get more trustworthy than that, right?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, and I got to acknowledge here, my mom and dad are here from Kansas City and got a chance to come in and spend a little time with them. And, we didn't have a lot growing up, but you didn't know that. I mean, and that's the thing about it. So I remember he would come over and he'd pick me up sometimes for school and would say, hey, we're having breakfast. And so he would stay and have breakfast. And so when he sat down at the table to have breakfast, he was expecting a bowl of cereal. No, not in my household. You know, Mama had biscuits and gravy and bacon and oatmeal and grits. I mean, pancakes. And so that was a breakfast. And he sit down. He was like, I can't believe that we're having a real breakfast. So obviously he started coming and pick me up more because he wanted to eat breakfast to go to school. But I tell you this, and my mom was telling me this the other day, and I didn't know this, but my grandfather had a third-grade education. And then his goal for her was to make sure that she graduated from high school. And then he made her promise that, hey, your kids, they got to make sure that they graduate from college. We're going to keep moving this forward every single time. So my great-grandfather was a slave. My grandfather got a third-grade education. My mom had a high school education. And so their goal was to make sure that we all got a college, education. And so we got to keep moving this thing forward. Now, I wish she would have told me that earlier because I went on and got my master's. And so then also all of my brothers and sisters, and there's 5 of us total, have an advanced degree as well, too. So if she would have told us this beforehand, now the pressure is on Deacon and Mason.
I was going to say, they got to get a doctorate.
They got to get a doctorate. They got to get a PhD. So, like in order to move this thing forward, because both me and my wife also have our master's degree, too. But, to me, you talk about a success story. To me, it's all about, like, the success story is my mom and dad raising 5 kids that have moved on and have advanced degrees in those tough situations and tough times, because I didn't know how bad the street that we lived on was until I got to that prep school and I would need a ride home after practices. And they say, well, I'll take you home. Where do you live? And I say, like, right off on Quindaro Boulevard. And they say, oh, my mom and dad said I could never go there. I can't go there. So we have to figure out a way to get home from there. But, I owe a lot to who I am from my mom and dad. I'm so appreciative of what they did for me and that they continue to support me in all my endeavors.
How many years have they been married now?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, I put you on the spot.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. I'm terrible with this stuff. My dad is saying 44 years.
Wow.
44 years.
That is just impressive. That's worth a round of applause, man. Come on. Well, it's so awesome to have them here. I know that it's always great to see family around the holidays. Did you have a good Christmas? Anybody that follows you on Twitter knows you got a brand new pair of PJs.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the last thing I wanted to do after all of our traveling that we had was to travel. So, but I had to travel. We went to Dallas to be with my in-laws, and then I had a good time there. But my wife, she had an edict that, hey, we got Christmas pajamas the night before, and there would be no opening of Christmas presents until everyone had their PJs on.
Ooh.
And so the lone holdout, as you can imagine, is my father-in-law, who was in Homeland Security, did not want to put on the pajamas. So my mother-in-law said, hey, you're going to ruin Christmas for your grandkids. And so anytime you talk about the grandkids with him, he succumbed. So he finally put on the pajamas, and we took the picture, and we were able to have a good Christmas.
Are your players wearing you out about the pajamas?
They haven't done it to my face, but I'm sure behind my back they've kind of got on me about it.
Kudos to your wife. That's awesome stuff. And if you don't follow Coach Ray on Twitter, make sure you go follow him, and you can check out the PJs. And they weren't pink bunnies. Wasn't Ralphie's pajamas. All right, so game plan going in here against Austin Peay on Thursday.
Well, the first thing that we're doing is we're having some individual workouts today. They're going to lift, and then we'll rotate. So we'll have a half the guys lifting while the other half is on the court doing individual work, and then we'll flip-flop those guys. We won't have a so-called practice today, but today will be kind of like in the off-season where you have a skill workout. So we'll do that today. And then tomorrow it's going to be about what do we need to do in order to be prepared for the physical confrontation that's going to happen at Austin Peay. So it's going to be a couple tough, hard-nosed practices, making sure our guys are ready for the war that's going to happen, because even though Austin Peay may be scoring more and even more they may be giving up, they're still going to be going out there and trying to punch you in the mouth. So, and we'll show our guys some film from some of the previous games that we played with Austin Peay, and they never really know it until they actually go through it. You show tape about other teams, and they're not going to do that to me. They're not going to do that to me. And then you go out there, and, yeah, they're doing it to you too as well. So we just got to make sure our guys' mindset and our approach is ready to get ready for a team that's going to be physical.
It'll be a 5:30 start for the women. It'll be a doubleheader. Men go right around 8 o'clock on Thursday. Coach, thanks so much for the time. Happy New Year, and we'll see you in Clarksville on Thursday.
Thank you very much, Eric.
That's Coach Rick Ray, and that'll do it for the Red Hawks Coaches Show. Thanks to Dean Field and Mike Rennick, our engineers on site. And, so sorry about the New England Patriots losing that number 2 seed. Joe Hobbs in mourning. Today he is wearing black, so just so you know. So that's going to do it. We got the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio coming up. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody, and Happy New Year. We'll talk to you next Monday from Wings Etc. in Cape.